What if peace wasn't just an aspiration? What if it was a business model? Welcome to Global Risk Profile, where we break down the headlines that matter and the ones that should. Imagine a deal where you end decades of conflict and build a railway that redirects trade for a generation, where a ceasefire comes packaged with mining rights, toll revenue, or a port lease. The US has been deploying exactly this approach, from the mineral fields of Ukraine to Central Africa to a new corridor cutting across the South Caucasus. Publicly, the language is all about reconciliation and stopping the killing. Privately, these agreements are also designed to reshape strategic geography, securing resources, locking in transit routes, and cutting rivals out of the loop. This is the Trump 47 Corridors for Peace playbook, or the peace deal deals. On the surface, each looks like a local peace settlement, but taken together, they reveal a much bigger pattern, a repeatable playbook that the current US administration seems to be using to end conflicts, sideline rivals, and secure economic advantages, all at the same time. If that pattern holds, it could tell us not just where American diplomacy will focus next, but also where it's likely to hold back. The blueprint is surprisingly consistent. First, a security for economic swap. Calm the guns in exchange for a revenue-producing asset. Second, exclusive US development or oversight rights over a corridor, a fund, or a key resource sector. Third, supply chain rerouting, shifting flows away from Russia, China, or Iran. Ukraine's mineral fund ties reconstruction to US-backed projects in uranium, lithium, and rare earths. The DRC-Rwanda Pact links troop withdrawals to Western investment in cobalt, copper, and lithium. And in the Caucasus, a peace deal between Armenia and Azerbaijan includes a US-controlled transit route, the TRIPP corridor bypassing Russia and Iran. Different regions, different conflicts, same architecture. When these deals are announced, the message is simple: peace has come. We see images of handshakes and signing ceremonies. Trump hailed the Armenia-Azerbaijan deal as historic, with promises that these foes are going to be friends for a long time. Local leaders, too, praised these deals. For many of the people on those podiums, this isn't just a talking point. It's the heart of the mission. But that's only part of the story. Underneath the rhetoric, these agreements are built to serve strategic purposes. They secure choke points, from mineral railways in Africa to mountain passes in the Caucasus. They embed US companies in the development and oversight of critical sectors. They hardwire trade routes away from strategic competitors. They also change the funding model. Instead of perpetual aid flows, these arrangements aim to be self-financing. Reconstruction or stability is paid for by mineral royalties, corridor tolls, and private investment. Benefits that only keep coming if the peace holds. So, this model can work when it aligns incentives across three layers. Layer 1, local, ending fighting, restoring stability, and generating revenue. Layer 2, US interests, secure supply chains, deny rivals control of key assets, and gain diplomatic leverage. And the global system, show that the US can still deliver win-win deals faster and more credibly than rivals. And there is a fourth, often overlooked layer, the durability of the economic component. Unlike foreign aid, which can be cut or diverted, a functioning trade corridor or mine produces a constant stream of revenue that both sides have an interest in protecting. This model depends on the mindset of the parties. The mechanics and the inherent risks of this model lie in transforming peace into an ongoing transaction. It's not just a handshake and a photo op. The parties have something tangible to lose if the deal falls apart. That's one reason why, despite vast mineral potential, the Ukraine issue remains unresolved. Kiev demands full territorial restoration. Moscow insists on recognizing its annexation and a neutral Ukraine. In such a case, there is no shared middle ground. By contrast, think, for example, of Camp David in 1978. Both Egypt and Israel came prepared to swap land for peace. Or the Abraham Accords, where normalization was anchored by trade, tech, and security benefits without touching the deepest disputes. The Corridors for Peace model thrives when it can align economic incentives with political compromise. To fully appreciate this model, let's step back and compare it to how previous U.S. administrations handled conflict resolution. It's a stark shift, really, from heavy military footprints and aid-driven efforts to something more deal-oriented and potentially self-sustaining. Under George W. Bush, peacemaking often meant boots on the ground and nation-building from scratch. Think Iraq and Afghanistan, massive invasions, counterinsurgency strategies led by the Pentagon, and billions poured into rebuilding societies. The goal was imposing democracy, but it came with endless troop commitments and huge costs, trillions in treasure and lives, without always tying peace to economic incentives that locals could own. President Obama pivoted to multilateral talks, targeted strikes, and sanctions as levers. The Iran nuclear deal, or JCPOA, is a prime example, easing sanctions for compliance with international oversight, but no built-in U.S. economic stakes, like corridors or funds. It relied on diplomacy and alliances, like bolstering NATO, but often left resolutions fragile when politics shifted, like when Trump pulled out. President Biden, building on Obama, emphasized coalitions, humanitarian aid, and deterrence through sanctions and support packages. In Ukraine, it's been about arming Kiev and rallying NATO without direct US boots on the ground, focusing on restricting Russia's resources to force talks. But again, it's aid-heavy. Billions, hundreds of billions flowing in, rather than self-financing mechanisms that potentially make peace profitable for all sides. Even going back to Bill Clinton's Dayton Accords in Bosnia, they had intense shuttle diplomacy, NATO enforcement, and institutional reforms, but no revenue-generating assets like mines or routes to lock in stability. The Trump 47 playbook flips this script. Instead of leading with military might or open-ended aid, it's about brokering deals where peace pays, literally, through shared profits, US oversight, and rivals sidelining. Less about imposing values, more about aligning interests. It's pragmatic, cost-effective, and designed for a world where America can't afford endless engagements. While this transactional shift may reduce costs, it could also overlook the governance reforms and multilateral buy-in that characterized earlier efforts, potentially leading to shorter-term gains at the expense of deeper stability. Is this approach better or just different? That's the question hanging over this new era. The US isn't the only one brokering peace, but other great powers play by different rules. China's model is built on large, often unrecoverable spending, grants, concessional loans, and infrastructure projects under the Belt and Road. The goal is influence and dependency, not mutual profitability. And when the balance of leverage shifts, Beijing has a track record of bending or breaking its promises. Russia's approach is coercion plus protector status. Insert peacekeepers, freeze the conflict, keep leverage over both sides. There is no economic engine to lock in calm, and instability remains a tool. The UN can hold a ceasefire line with peacekeepers, but it can't generate the shared revenues that make peace self-sustaining. So here is the difference. The current US model is openly transactional. The price is clear, the benefits are tangible, and both sides know the deal. With America, you get peace and profit if you hold up your end. With Beijing, the terms can shift in the shadows and the benefits may vanish. For partners, that clarity is a selling point. For rivals, it's a direct threat to their influence. Back in Washington, these deals have sparked a sharp and unusual debate, one that doesn't fall neatly along party lines. Supporters see these deals as exactly the kind of foreign policy America has needed for decades. Agreements that end conflicts without open-ended troop commitments, cut the foreign aid bill, and open markets for American companies in sectors that will define the future. They argue that stability is anchored in trade and investment, and it's harder to unravel than a ceasefire signed under pressure. And they point out that every corridor for peace so far has also sidelined their rivals' influence, cutting Moscow out of the Caucasus, reducing Beijing's grip on African minerals, or rerouting supply chains away from unstable regions. Critics see something very different. To them, these deals risk looking like resource grabs, veiled imperialism wrapped in the language of peace, handing valuable concessions to aggressors who used force to impose their bargaining position. They worry that human rights and governance reforms are being sidelined in the rush for commercial gains. Some question whether concentrating control of a strategic asset in the hands of U.S. companies might entrench local elites and lock out local entrepreneurs. Others warn that the economic glue holding these agreements together is fragile. Commodity prices may fall, or one side may decide that profit is no longer worth the compromise and the whole arrangement could unravel. The clash is less about the morality of peace and more about the method. Is this a sustainable strategy for conflict resolution or a dangerous precedent? After looking closely at the Ukraine mineral plan, the Rwanda-Congo agreement, and the Armenia-Azerbaijan corridor, a pattern emerged. Each deal works when 6 specific conditions are present. From that, we can build a way to gauge where the model could succeed and where it might fail. Let's go over them. 1. Both sides must be transactional actors, willing to trade concessions for concrete benefits. When leaders insist on maximalist goals, as in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, the model stalls. 2. There has to be a strategic asset, a port, a corridor, or a resource that can produce long-term revenue. Think cobalt in eastern DRC or mineral fields in Ukraine. 3. There needs to be an enforceable U.S. role, the ability to control, invest in, or guarantee the economic component so that peace pays, like the Reconstruction Investment Fund in Ukraine. 4. The deal must displace a rival, sidestepping China's Belt and Road, cutting Russia in the South Caucasus via the Trip Corridor, or blocking Iran from a trade artery. 5. There should be a coalition partner buy-in, another trusted power investing alongside the U.S. to share the risk and deepen commitment, like the EU, Qatar, and SIX. It must offer a domestic political payoff, a win that can be shown to voters as both a foreign policy success and an economic gain, like job-generating infrastructure or a revenue stream for reconstruction. I invite you to run these filters over the world map, and certain regions may start to light up. Each potential case will have its own complexities. The test doesn't guarantee success. It simply tells us where the ingredients for a corridors for peace deal are on the table. The rest depends on timing, leadership, and whether rivals decide to spoil the meal before it's served. Please let me know in the comments which areas and conflicts might be next in line for this program, and whether you think it would be successful there. The Corridors for Peace model isn't magic. It's a tool in a toolbox with other tools. It's a tool that works best when both sides want a profitable peace more than a perfect victory. When it works, it seems to be creating stability that feeds back on itself, cuts aid bills, and builds influence without permanent troop deployments. When it would fail, conflicts could drag on and rivals would find openings to spoil. In a world of shifting alliances and rising competition, the US is betting that it can still make the peace table the place where both sides win, and where America wins just a little more. Whether the bet pays off depends not just on the skill of the deal makers, but perhaps also on how long the economic glue can hold before rivals try to pry it apart. We'll need time to see how this actually goes in practice over the long term. What do you think of this new approach? And do you think it will work well? Please let me know in the comments. That's it for this episode of Global Risk Profile. If you found this useful, thoughtful, or just different, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Remember, the headlines may change, but the deeper patterns rarely do. Thanks for listening, and stay sharp.